Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to another video here on my channel. Hope you're doing well. So I've been gone for a while, which is not abnormal for this channel, but oh boy, did this situation in particular turn out to be super abnormal. Turns out I've been dealing with a wildly traumatic experience for months now. Coming out of that, and I thought to myself, what's the best thing I could do to deal with these feelings? And the answer seemed to be go through a traumatizing experience with a new character. So, yes, I have Alchemised. I'm so unbelievably excited about this. Cannot stress it enough. This will be basically all spoilers, full plot summary, and I'll sort of review and analyze and go through it with you as we go along. And then we'll do some kind of like recap at the end. You know what I mean? So this should be a fully comprehensive guide to this book, all right? It's like 3 days after I filmed the intro, and this is what my book looks like. So, slight revision to the plan. We're gonna do part 1 in this video, hoping to get it out by the end of the week. I'm already deep into part 2, and there's just, I knew there was a lot that happens, but there's a lot that happens. So we're gonna go over it part by part, and then probably what I'll do is make like a compilation video at the end and put it all together into one. It's Saturday right now, the 27th, I think, as I'm recording this. And this book came out on Tuesday. I work near a Barnes & Noble, so I did try to get my hands on it Tuesday night just on a whim because everybody has been saying it is so good. And so I tried to do that. Sold out, which was to be expected because, again, everybody's been freaking out about it. I probably should have just pre-ordered, but I didn't. Waited a couple days trying to see when things would restock. Barnes & Noble near me, no restocks. So I started going to Walmart. This was the third Walmart I went to. It was the last one on the shelves. So we got the book. I cackled like a maniac in the middle of the aisle. If you don't know, this book was originally the saddest, darkest, most intense dramione fanfiction I've ever read. This has been kind of a trend. As somebody who also writes and reads a lot of fanfiction, it's not that I don't like that they're getting picked up for publishing, because my like original work, right, is a Bankai inspired book. So it's an original work heavily inspired by Bankai. I'm a Bankai fanfiction writer. That's like where the bulk of my work is. But I have written Draco and Hermione before, and they're kind of like my OG. Well, they're like one of my OG enemies to lovers. I have a lot. I have a lot of OG enemies to lovers, right? But Draco and Hermione are on the list. I love them, and specifically I love them in Faren, because I'm a Draco lover, okay? But in canon, I think we were kind of robbed from what was supposed to be the end of his story. If you know, you know. We don't need to get into it here. Faren writers have taken Draco and elevated him into, like, amazing book boyfriend status, right? Editing Sarah, just popping in to make it abundantly clear that this is not gonna be a one-for-one comparison about the fan fiction, because I don't talk about HP on this channel. I don't want to platform JKR at all, and so I wanted obviously to mention it because that is a part of my life. It's just not a part of my life that I put a platform to, because I don't agree with what she's doing and I don't really want to give her attention. So she sucks. She sucks. She's horrible. Yeah, can't stand that woman. Can't stand what she's done to the legacy of a world that meant a lot to a lot of people. But the hurt she's caused is just like unimaginable. So we're not going to go through this being like, oh, and this character represents so-and-so, and this character represents them. We're not going to do that. What I've seen a lot of people talking about, and what I can say now as somebody who is even farther in the book, I'm like deep into part 2 now. It's so different. It's so different. I could read this book with absolutely no HP context at all, and it feels like its own world, which I love to see. That's what I'm striving for with my original work as well. There are like a handful of tiny Easter eggs that we'll talk about, but again, I'm just gonna mention them, and if you know what they mean, then you know what they mean. I'm not a dust jacket girly. So I'm big on like the outside being pretty. Look at the spine. Very simple, very clean, but look at the cover. Oh, hello. Let's read the inside cover though, shall we? Once a promising alchemist, Helena Marino is now a prisoner of war and of her own mind. Her resistance friends and allies have been brutally murdered. Her abilities suppressed and the world she knew destroyed. In the aftermath of a long war, Palladia's? I think that's how we're going to say it. Palladia's? In the aftermath of a long war, Palladia's new ruling class of corrupt guild families, if you know, you know, and depraved necromancers, oh, I'm so excited, whose vile undead creatures helped bring about their victory, holds Helena captive. According to resistance records, she was a healer and of little importance within their own ranks. Oh my god. But Helena has inexplicable memory loss of the months leading up to her capture, making her enemies wonder, is she truly as insignificant as she appears, or are her lost memories hiding some vital piece of the resistance final gambit? To uncover the memories buried deep within her mind, Helena is sent to the High Reeve, one of the most powerful and ruthless necromancers in this world. Say less. Trapped on his crumbling estate, Helena's fight to protect her lost history and to preserve the last remaining shreds of her former self is just beginning. For her prison and captor have secrets of their own, ... Secrets Helena must unearth, whatever the cost. No, I'm so excited. Y'all don't even know. Y'all don't even know. I'm so... Is this a map? Ooh, there's like a hedge maze map. Let me just... Look at that. Look at that. And look who's at the center, ladies and gents. My man, my man, my man. I'm so excited. I hope you guys are excited. Join me on this adventure back into my channel, back into reading. Part of what's been going on with me is like losing sight of my own interest and the things that like genuinely bring me joy and make me happy. And I can just tell you right now, this is gonna bring me some joy, all right? Just inject it straight into my veins. The trauma locked in these pages. Look how big it is, by the way. And it's thin paper too. You know, like when you're holding the Bible? Because this is like over 1,000 pages. This book is huge. This is insanity for a debut, but I'm so excited. Can't wait. Let's get into it, shall we? So Helena is our alchemist, and she is stuck in endless dark. The whole prologue is just her sort of ruminating on, does she have a body anymore? She thinks she does, but she can't really feel it. She's not super aware of where she is. It's just dark, and every 3 hours she's being like lightly electrocuted so that her body doesn't start to like break down and decay because she's stuck in a stasis tank. She knows where she is. She's in a warehouse somewhere, stuck in the tank, being preserved for the necromancers. And then suddenly, she wakes up without warning. She's in the fluid, so she's drowning in the tank, and they have to rip it open and get her out. Everybody around her is screaming. She can't open her eyes because the light hurts. This was not supposed to happen, so they very quickly like knock her out again, and she's super disoriented and confused. When she wakes up the second time, she pretends to stay asleep so that she can listen to them talking around her. She's being transferred to somewhere called Central, and they're going to do more tests on her because nobody can figure out why she woke up at all. Again, that was not supposed to happen. You're supposed to be unconscious. Most of the people in there are soup and bones now because they've been in there for so long that they're just deteriorating. For some reason, she also has 2 inmate files, so her records have been tampered with and nobody can figure out why. She refuses to make things easier by explaining, but we know that she knows her name is Helena, and her last memories are of the resistance losing the war. So she remembers being at the alchemy tower, getting locked in cages with everybody, and then being forced to watch while the resistance leaders killed each other. And this is where the gore starts. Like, this book is really gory, but it's like my favorite kind of gore, where it's just like, it's not showy gore, like it doesn't go on and on and on, but it's really horrific. So basically what the necromancers did was like kill one of the leaders really brutally, then bring that mutilated body back to life, and then let it kill the next person in line. So the leaders were like killing each other. So one of the last sets of people was a husband and wife. We learn that the woman interrogating her, Dr. Straoud, is a vivomancer, and this is a special type of like this world's version of magic. It's the inverse of necromancy, so it's essentially the same thing of like manipulating a body, but it's a living body instead of a corpse. This world also has drugs that allow the vivomancers to like rewire your emotions and your bodily functions. They can already do that, but then they can also give you medicine that will like make it even easier. And then they also have things that we have now, like opium. While she's trying to like torture Helena into speaking, she goes to like take the memories and like answers out of her brain herself, and it turns out something's wrong with Helena's mind. So her brain has essentially been like rerouted and rewired to hide something, and that's why she has no memories. Helena has no memory of this happening, but it does freak her out, and also Straoud is, you know, low-key torturing her a little bit, so she ends up giving away like some little information like her name and where she's from. We learn that she's not from Polidia, which is the main country that we're talking about. She's from Estras. I wish we had a pronunciation guide. We don't yet. We might by the time I film part 2, but we don't yet. So I'm bumbling my way through these names, and if we get them wrong, we get them wrong. We're in this together. And we learn that her alchemy background, which alchemy is the main magic system in this world, so people work with metals. Helena's background is diverse, so she can work with a broad spectrum of metals. Also learn the word liches, which is like a D&D term. My husband was like, what are they doing in this book? But essentially it's what, like, there's the high necromancer who's like the main bad guy, and under him are the undying or liches. The resistance calls them liches. Everybody else is supposed to call them the undying, and you can get in a lot of trouble for calling them liches now. And then regular necromancers and like supporters are under those people trying to become the undying, and then under all of that are the necrothralls, which are what they're called when they reanimate the corpses. We get a little bit of info about the religion. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to break this into parts, because I didn't know all of the info needed for world building until the end of part 1, and it's like almost 300 pages. So I kind of loved that, because if you're in the fantasy romantasy genre, you know that there's kind of a running joke that like the first 100 to 150 pages of a new fantasy, you're gonna get slammed with world building. And I really thought this was an interesting way to do it, where it was heavily sprinkled in, but like unless it was fully 100% necessary for the moment in the chapter, you're not getting more information. So she would mention like one god here, 2 gods here, another god over here. Like it did not get dumped on you all at once. And while it made it harder slightly to like put everything together, it was also nice to not be completely bombarded with everything all at once. So I really enjoyed that. But we find out that they have a quintessence of gods. So there's 5 of them. And right now we're only talking about Sol, who is the sun god connected to gold. And he's the like god head of at least Polidia. It sounds like he is kind of like the head of the pantheon no matter what, but Polidia specifically like really worships him the strongest. People who are like devoted to him are part of the sacred faith. Most people, again, in this area follow that religion, and then the resistance and the eternal flame sprang up from that. This world's version of magic is called resonance, and again, it's connected to how they do the transmutation and alchemization. If you've turned away from the gods and your resonance is corrupted, that's what allows you to start doing things like vivomancy and necromancy, at least according to the sacred faith. Lumithium is considered the element of resonance because it like combines earth, air, fire, and water, but in its purest form, it hurts mortals. So they can work with it, but they have to be careful, and it will hurt them. And like it triggers this thing called the toll, which essentially like drains their vitality and their magic if they use it too closely or are like touching it directly. Helena has manacles on her wrists that she was aware of in the tank that are like muting her resonance and keeping her from doing any magic, and those are made from the lumithium. Once Helena gets transferred to Central, she gets visited by an old resistance friend named Grace, who was an orderly in the hospital. Her face is scarred, and at first Helena is so confused because she's like, why would the Undying do that to you? And Grace is like, oh no, we did this to ourselves. And she explains that once the resistance lost, they basically became like free-for-all civilians. So the Undying will just do whatever they want to them, and nobody stands up or does anything because they're resistance people, so they deserve it. So the women have all scarred their faces so that at least they let them go sooner. I obviously have to be careful because I'm making this video on YouTube, but I really appreciated that there's no like shy language in this book. It's just on page for you, and I kind of loved that because this book is about war. It's dark, but I unfortunately have to like dilute it down, which is kind of annoying. But just know that if you're sensitive to stuff like that, you need to read the trigger warnings. There's a whole thing in the back of the book. I'll just read it to you now. So these are the content notes. Alchemised is a work of dark fantasy containing wartime violence, religious abuse, depictions of complex trauma, suicidal ideation, self-harm, human experimentation, medical torture, eugenics, cannibalism, sexual assault, rape, and allusions to necrophilia. Please remember that depiction is not authorial endorsement. Because Alchemised is told in third-person limited point of view, it necessarily involves some distortions of vision as well as missed or misconstrued events. Reader discretion is advised. And I would say reader discretion is advised. Like, some stuff gets dark, and we're gonna get into it before the end of this part, so just know that in your hearts. Grace has come to the hospital in hopes of selling one of her eyes because they are paying for things to do experiments on, and she has younger brothers that can't work yet. All of the resistance people have been shoved into this like safe house location called the Outpost that is not a good place to be living. It's just like falling apart, crumbling. It was already messed up, and we're gonna find that out later, and it's just gotten worse after the war. They don't have enough food or supplies, so everybody's getting desperate. She tells us about the High Reeve, who is the High Necromancer's like executioner basically, and he has started hunting down any remaining resistance fighters. So she does say that Lila ran away, and she was the first person that he brought back dead. The wardens who were in charge of the outpost put Lila's body up as like a dead sentinel at the front of the gates, so now she just guards the property for the other resistance people as like a reminder to not run. This horrifies Helena because Lila was Luke, who, again, we're getting all of this thrown at us, okay? But as of right now, all we know is Luke Holdfast was basically the head of the resistance. He died. Lila was his primary paladin, and so with him dying, of course she died as well. The High Reeve's powers are really scary. He can apparently kill people without touching them, which Helena is like, that's not how resonance works. That's not supposed to be possible. And Grace is like, yeah, well, I've seen him do it, okay? He can kill upwards of 10 people at one time without even lifting his fingers. Usually the way the resonance works, you either have to have like an array to like channel, they look like this, or you have to make a channel yourself with physical touch. Straoud comes back to take Helena to the High Necromancer. His name is Maro. We're gonna call him that from now on. She's terrified because the last time she saw him, he was killing Luke, and now she's being taken to see him again against her will, strapped down to a table. While she's being pushed through Central, she realizes abruptly that she's actually inside the alchemy tower. So this is where the resistance was using as like their headquarters, and it was also the school that she studied at for years, and now it's been taken over by the necromancers, and they're using it as their like experimentation hospital. She ends up having to be knocked out because she's so scared, and then when she wakes up again, she's being examined by multiple people. They're trying to figure out what happened to her mind, what's the most likely scenario. They think maybe she did it to herself, maybe somebody else did it to her. Either way, she's hiding information, and they want to be able to get it out. Maro shows himself to like search her mind on his own, and his magic is so painful, really hard to withstand, but he's also terrifying looking. So the last time she saw him, he was killing Luke, and he looked like a regular man. He had a mask on, but he looked normal. Now he's like mutated. So he's like the size of two grown men. His arms and legs are bent weird, and the joints are strange. And when he like reaches out his hand to her, it's got like way too many knuckles. His fingers are too long. Like he looks like a monster, like a skeleton monster basically. And he has like his face especially is basically a skeleton. He's got no eyes. His mouth is weird. A man named Shisio is brought in, and he's a foreigner like Helena. She is immediately upset with him because it turns out he was apparently like working with the resistance, and she can't tell if he was a spy or just a traitor, but the fact that he's now working with with the necromancers disgust her. He doesn't seem to recognize her. He's like, I think maybe she was a healer, I'm not sure. And this only serves to make Straoud even angrier because it means that Helena was like accepted into the resistance and allowed to use her magic because she like gave herself over to the sacred faith, whereas Straoud herself was shunned along with all the other Vivimancers because they think that they're cursed. Shicio works specifically with metals, so he was brought in to put fresh manacles on her, and these ones are really horrific. So her current ones are basically just a bracelet. He inserts like a metal rod through her wrist that is like basically pure lumithium, or like it's like coated lumithium, and then it's really cool, but also, you know, it's horrifying, but the magic is just really cool. He brings out like a ribbon of metal, like it's just like a metal ribbon, and loops it around the manacle bracelet and then like turns it solid so that it turns into like a thing that she can't get off. But when he pulls it out of his bag, it's like a shiny, thin metal ribbon. Like, oh, it was so cool. And then a woman named Mandel is brought in, and she is apparently the one who kidnapped Helena and put her in the tank conscious. She was also angry, just like Straoud, that Helena had been accepted, and so she wanted to punish her herself. So she was planning on putting her conscious into the tank so that she would suffer more, and then going back and getting her out and punishing her and killing her herself. But Mandel was basically like promoted right after that, and she was worried about getting into trouble, so she just decided not to say anything, and she assumed Helena would die. Obviously she didn't, and now it turns out that she's probably hiding really important resistance information, so Maro is pissed. This gore was really cool. Mandel is basically like begging for a second chance, and Maro is like, no, you really disappointed me, and he like raises his hand and her chest opens. Like her ribs just unfurl. She's still alive and talking and seemingly not in any pain. He reaches into her chest and is like, you're not gonna disappoint me again, and then pulls out this weird little device. Her body collapses onto the floor. Helena can see all of this. She's so scared. So Mandel like collapses onto the floor, and then Maro puts the little device into one of the necrothal bodies in the room, and Mandel's voice starts talking from the necrothal. Oh, it was gross. He basically insinuates, you know, if you behave and you're a good girl, maybe I'll give you back your original body. And she's stuck in a decaying corpse now. Once that's done, they go back to messing with Helena, and they're trying to figure out, can they just rip the memories out of her themselves? And Moro's like, yeah, why not? Let's do that. So they plan on just right then cutting into her brain with her alive and yanking the memories out themselves. Thankfully, Shicio is still in the room, and he's like, hey, I just remembered something else. There was a general, General Bayard, which I'm 99% sure is Lila's father, and he was apparently injured in the war. His head was messed up, and there was a healer named Elaine Boyle who went in and fixed him. Helena is laying there on the table like, who is Elaine Boyle? I knew all the healers in the hospital. I was the only one. What are you talking about? So she has no idea who that name is or what that means. But Maro and Straoud know who that is and are like, oh, Elaine Boyle, right. She is the animancer that was like taking care of Luke. Animancy is essentially magic of the mind. So the idea is that Elaine went into this general's head herself and healed him from the inside out. Again, Helena has no idea what any of them are talking about, but Maro is like, that would be incredible because it would mean that he could potentially put the undying souls in living bodies instead of having to transfer them to dead bodies, which is what the liches are. Straoud's really excited to further her experiments on Helena, but Maro is like, no, I have other plans for you. Let's send her to the High Reeve. We get a big history dump now that we're talking about Luke. Several centuries ago, there was another necromancy war. Alchemy was considered magic at the time, and all the figures from that war, including Luke's ancestors, are like cloaked in myth, so nobody knows for sure what really happened. As time went on though, Luke's family changed that. They built the Institute so that people from all over, including Helena, who is again not from the same area, could come and study alchemy, and anybody could use it, essentially. The main guild families for each of the medals were really annoyed by this because they felt like other people coming in and like taking spots at the school took away places from their children, which was kind of a joke because the guild families are so ingrained in society and so important and so powerful that their kids are set up for success. Like, they're kind of trained in alchemy from the time they're born. They know they're good at it. They know what they're going to end up doing when they grow up. So they don't even need the training. They just go to the school, get their certification, and leave. Whereas people like Helena don't have the resources or the opportunities to study where she's from. We also learned that Luke's dad, Apollo, was killed, and that was the start of the war, because after that, the guild families, who had always felt like the holdfasts were like holding them back from industrialism, took over and made like a council, and they became in charge. And then in that chaos, Maro showed up, promised immortality, and everything just went to shit. The Alchemy Tower School is broken into levels, so the first 5 levels are where most people go to school, and then you get your certification and you can leave. But if you keep going up, you get more and more specialized in the fields that you're studying until you finally make it to Grandmaster, which is like the top of the tower. Helena has a lot of memories of being mocked while she was at school because she's more expressive than these kids who are from the north. She had a hard time fitting in, but Luke was always a really good friend to her, and then people like Lila, who were his friends, were also really close with her. Straoud wants to know why they let her join the resistance, let alone be close friends with Luke, if they knew she was a vivimancer, and she's like, well, nobody knew. And then when everybody found out, Luke didn't care. He said that it didn't matter what kind of powers I did, it only mattered like what I did with them. Straoud wants her to admit that this whole idea of divine rule is ridiculous and the holdfasts didn't deserve anything above anybody else. Helena kind of agrees with that, but she does think that the Holdfast family were good people, and Luke especially was a really good and kind person. She goes on and on multiple times about how it doesn't matter that he was like blessed by the gods. That's not why she followed him. She followed him because he was genuinely just a really good person, and he deserved to be taking care of people and be in charge because he wanted it for the right reasons. Helena's also really confused about the name Elaine Boyle because that's not anybody she knew at all. And also, she is the one who saved General Bayard, except she didn't save him. She technically regenerated his brain and fixed him so he woke up, but all of his cognitive abilities were like knocked back down to toddlerhood. So she didn't fix his mind at all. Obviously, she doesn't tell Straoud this, and what they do talk about instead is more so why Helena's not on any of the records for anything, and it's because of her vivimancy. Like, she was basically taught that you're not supposed to like glorify this ability that she has, so they didn't want any record of it. They didn't want proof that the resistance was using it, is the thing, right? So they were overworking her in the hospital and having her do all this crazy stuff that they were then telling the general population is corrupt and evil. It's not good. Straoud can see that and is like, girly pop, they didn't care about you. Get it through your head, like you were a pawn in the game. And Helena's like, no, no, no. Whether or not some of the people felt that way, that's not how Luke felt, and Luke's the only one that I care about. She's also really struggling with the new manacles on her wrists, not just because they block her resonance, but because they're like literally going through her wrists like that. She's dealing with a lot of pain around the bones in her hand and the bones in her arm. So that's really hard for her. Her fingers are spasming a lot. There just seems to be like nerve stuff going on. And alchemists in general are supposed to take really good care of their hands. So this is really hard for her to deal with. In the hallway at Central, while she's going back to her room, because she's still a prisoner, but they're trying to like quote unquote take better care of her now that they know Maro needs something from her. So she's like walking now. She's not like chained up anymore. She runs into Crowther, who is one of the Resistance Council members, except it's not really him. It's somebody from the Undying using his body, like wearing his corpse. He recognizes Helena, but she doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't give her his name, so she's not sure who she's talking to. We also learn about Bennett, who was like basically in charge of the laboratories and stuff for the necromancers. He was really evil. He was making all these like horrifying experiments and stuff. He was building like essentially like this world's version of like mutts, so they were like chimeras running around. Helena is thankful that he seems to be dead, but she doesn't remember what happened to him. She also runs into another Resistance member named Penny, who's clearly been dealing with some of the experimentation, so she's very hurt, but Penny says to her, "You were right, I'm so sorry, we should have listened to you." And Helena's like, "About what?" Helena is then taken to Spyfell, which is an estate on the West Island. So there's basically like the mainland and then the East Island and the West Island. The East Island is where the school is, and that's where the Resistance was like using as a stronghold. And then the West Island is where most of the necromancers were. So this is where the High Reeve's estate is. When they get there, she meets his wife, Aurelia, who is standing at the top of the front staircase in a green dress. Now listen, we love to see it. It was such a nice little simple Easter egg. Ooh, I loved it. Helena freaks out in the entryway when she sees the blood red roses, and Straoud is kind of like, "Can you get it together? You're embarrassing me." But Aurelia, who is a little demon, is like immediately clocked onto that and loves that she now has something to like exploit from Helena. We meet the High Reeve, who is waiting with his back turned when Helena comes into the room, and all she can see of him is that he's tall with like silver white hair. So she's immediately like, yes, he's one of the guild patriarchs. Oh my god, great news. She describes him as being like all the others, which is prideful, obsessed with power and perceived status, and always demanding more respect. Help. But then he turns around, and it's actually Faren, her classmate. They'd been chasing each other academically for years, but because he's head of the Iron Guild and she's not a guild student, they just never spoke to each other. But literally the whole time they were in school, they were just one-upping each other in the exams the whole time. She knew him decently well, right, from class. So he used to have dark hair, and now he's like drained of all color. He's got silver white hair, his eyes are silver, his skin's really pale. She's spooked. She's like, what the hell has been done to you? What's going on? Also, how are you the High Reeve? We're like barely in our 20s. Straoud is trying desperately to like keep the conversation going, and Kane is just like having none of it. Like he's one-wording her, maybe two-wording her, trying to just get out of the room as quick as possible. Like, go on, King. Give us stoic and emotionless, you know how it thrills me. Shout out to me in the intro being like, I just know this man's gonna hit for me. I was correct. I'm gonna call him both names, but Helena mostly refers to him as Faren because they do a lot of the surname stuff. This is like where they're at. Listen, it's somewhere in Europe, okay? Somewhere in Europe. They all have attitudes. Everybody's cold and cranky. Faren does a preliminary exam on Helena, and his resonance is really scary because he can basically like paralyze her without touch, just like Grace said. So he takes a glove off and then sort of points his hand at her, and she's frozen instantly, can't move, and then he barely touches her temple and is able to like look through her memory, and it's a lot more gentle than when Maro did it, but it's still creepy and unsettling that he's so good at it. And like the way his resonance feels in her body, she knows she can't move, but it's not really painful. It's just super unsettling. Aurelia is pissed that they actually have to keep Helena, like she does not want her in the house. And Faren is super dismissive of his wife and is basically just like, oh, well, you're gonna have to share your clothes too unless you want me to have things made special for her. Just like tormenting the wife on purpose, right? Like they clearly don't have a good relationship. While she's taking her to her room, she also explains that like it wouldn't even matter if Helena could use her resonance since the house is basically 100% made of iron, and her and Faren are able to do it easily because he's again the heir of the Iron Guild, so that's his family metal. But then Aurelia herself also has high iron resonance, so she's able to like manipulate it. But Helena does say when Aurelia makes like the iron rings that she wears turn into like claws, they're not good weapons. Like, they're showy and flashy, but if she were to like actually use them, they would break her fingers. Plus, Aurelia has a walking staff that she uses, so there's some implications that like she's not as healthy as she sort of like appears to be. Alone in her room, Helena explores and reflects on seeing Faren again. She realizes now that she's like met him in person that she misunderstood the High Reeve. She thought that the quick kills and stuff like that were because he's so impulsive and his power has made him like drunk with it and he just wants to show off what he can do. But it turns out that he's just so talented that he can just pluck the answers out of your head without even needing to touch you. Why would he need to keep prisoners alive when he can just get the info he wants and snap their necks? She's really confused about his appearance because typically the Undying don't change. So whenever you're turned into an Undying, your body, like your original body, regenerates and stuff to that original body. You stop aging, you can't change your appearance, you are stuck in that body forever, essentially, unless you take the device out and switch bodies, but then you're in a decaying corpse and you have to keep switching those each time. She says that it's like he's been distilled, as though he'd been taken and sublimated until all that was left was an essence, something deathly cold and gleaming, the High Reeve. Not a person, but a weapon. She would be sure to treat him as one. We get a little lore dump about the Faren family. They were connected to the industrialization of the last century. Iron is one of the 8 metals connected to the planets. Most of the things in this world are either in sets of 5 for the gods or 8 for the planets. So we have lead for Saturn, tin for Jupiter, iron for Mars, copper for Venus, quicksilver for Mercury, silver for Luna, lumithium for Lumithia, which is like the second moon in this world, and then gold for Sol. Iron was considered a lowly metal, so originally, yes, the Farens were part of a guild, but they were not like a super wealthy family. And then the Faren family discovered how to like mass produce steel, and because of that, they essentially built the city with their steel while the holdfasts were expanding it. So very quickly they like skyrocketed to the top of the guild list and became one of the most wealthy families. Because Aurelia is evil, as I said, she gives Helena a red dress to wear. So that's great for her PTSD. She's really horrible to Helena and makes fun of her for being foreign and kind of makes like savage comments without straight up calling her savage, but like that's what she's implying. It was really gross. And then she tricks her into going into Kane's room to wait for him. And even though Helena knows he's not gonna like that, she does it anyway because she's too afraid to be left alone in the shadows of the hallway. She really struggles with the color red because it makes her think of blood, and then darkness of any kind because it reminds her of being in the stasis box. Faren catches her in his room, but instead of like immediately freaking out and being angry, he's kind of just like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, it's time for us to start, and just sort of brushes it off, knowing that Aurelia did it to be annoying. Wow, my cats are really going to town. You see, there's Eli. He starts drinking, which will be a theme. He shows off his powers again and like puppeteers her into a chair and then stands behind her to like do the transference session, which is essentially going to meld his mind into hers so that he can go in and extract the memories himself. It's really painful for her this time and very strange. She's kind of resisting it, and that's part of why it hurts so much. But he does get into her mind just in time for her to be thinking about how cruel he looks and how alien and unnatural his features are. So he immediately yeets himself from her mind and is like, get out of my room, like so angry. She stumbles out into the hall super disoriented and confused and thinks about throwing herself off the railing. From the top floor where she's at, she can make out the carving that's on the marble floor at the bottom, and it's this guy from the cover of the book. Later, she calls the symbol an omen of a destructive, insatiable hunger which left nothing but ruin in its wake. The fact that it's a dragon, the family crest of the Faren family is a dragon. This might be my favorite Easter egg so far. We love to see it. Once again, she's thinking about throwing herself off the railing, but Faren shows up and snatches her arm and is like, don't you dare. Absolutely not. And then he drags her back to her room. He, like, sort of attempts to calm her down, but really he's just yelling at her to calm down and it's not really working. And then he looks into her memories again to see what other ideas she's had and is really struck by the fact that she was trying to trick him into killing her. He's basically like, you can do your best to try, but I'm not that easily swayed. That's not gonna happen. And then leaves her alone. The transference ends up making her really sick, and so she ends up with a horrible fever. She's hallucinating. The doctor that's brought in gives her arsenic as a treatment, and Faren is like, anything but poison, you dumbass. The doctor is like, I assure you that arsenic is fine, and if it has, you know, complications on her body, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because we don't need her after you get the memories out. And Faren's like, oh, okay, and when she dies, before I finish my task, I'll be sure to tell the High Necromancer that you're the one who gave her the poison. So very quickly, they find a new treatment option. Straoud is brought in and basically says that Faren needs to be keeping a better eye on her. So she is forcing him to ensure that she walks and stuff outside so that she stays healthy. While they're outside, he's reading the paper, like super bored. There's a really funny moment where like when he's taking her outside, he like looks at her and is like, you're worse than having a dog. And sometimes the dry humor that they gave him just like really got me, all right? It was really good. There were a couple lines where I was like, wow. But he shows her an article in the paper where it's being publicized that she is the last resistance member to be caught. She is staying with him, and it seems like an obvious trap for any remaining resistance members out there that they could come and get her from him, because nobody knows that Faren is the High Reeve, so they would be walking right into like a horrific trap and he would kill them. This triggers a panic attack and she tries to escape, but obviously she can't get off the grounds. She comes back to Faren like cold and bleeding, and he's like, you haven't been outside long enough, keep walking. So she has to do another lap around the grounds. She ends up so cold that she's like, I could just sit down and die of hypothermia, but Faren catches her and is like, nice try, and then drags her inside. He makes one of the necrothrall women clean her up so that she doesn't track like mud through the house. She hates it. She does not like them waiting on her, and she also just doesn't like being around the corpses. Like, it really freaks her out, and Faren doesn't care. He's like, I'm not gonna do it, so sit still. And she ends up calling him a monster, and he's like, oh, did you just now realize that? Little tiny lore dump about necromancy itself. The sacred faith believe that the soul and the body are connected until cremation. So the fact that the necrothralls are reanimated corpses that haven't been burned means that their souls are trapped inside the decaying flesh, and the older that they get, the more corrupt the souls get until there's no purification that can be done, and your soul basically goes to the abyss, which is like their version of hell. Helena steals the newspaper that he'd been reading and is really confused by the amount of time she's lost. The article obviously discusses her and Faren a little bit at length, and again says that she's the last resistance fighter, but it also says that he's the one who killed Apollo, which really confuses her because she's like, we were children. Like, we were 16 when that happened. How did he manage that? Since this is all written by the necromancers and their supporters, they give their version of history, which is that Luke was like a power-hungry child who wanted to take over after his father was killed, and he didn't respect that the guild families wanted to rule themselves. But she swears that this isn't true because Luke, again, was a really good person, and he didn't want to be in charge. The only reason why he accepted the role was because all the other holdfasts were dead. So he was the only one left to do it, and he didn't want to give up on the family legacy and disappoint everybody. She also learns about the newest experiment program that Straoud is running, which is basically a repopulation breeding program, and she's disgusted because she knows that all the women like Grace who have been forced into the outpost are gonna flock to it. It's kind of ironic too, because it's like the necromancers killed all the alchemists and now the population is decimated, and so they're trying to like rebrand and basically being like, we're gonna partner people based on resonance, and then we'll have like a small army of really strong, powerful babies. The next generation will be so cool. It's real dark and icky. I don't like it. In the shower, Helena discovers scars on her body that she has no memories of. There's multiple. There's like one on her calf, one on her chest, and then she has one that she does remember, which is on her neck. just barely missing her throat. Faren leaves her outside for their next walk, and then she can't follow him back into the house because she's so scared of the dark. So once again, she's trapped in the cold and the rain until he comes and gets her. And when he's like, what are you doing? I told you to stop trying to give yourself hypothermia. She's like, I couldn't go back inside. It's dark. And he's like, you're scared of the dark? And really makes fun of her for it. Like, he's not a nice boy. She explains that obviously it's an irrational fear of places she can't see because of what was done to her inside the stasis tank. She knows that it's not rational and she would love to let it go, but she can't. He seems like mildly curious at first, but he's really unreadable, so she doesn't know what he thinks ever. She says multiple times that he's like a statue, and then he ends up looking her dead in the face and being like, when I knew that it was you that I was getting, I was really excited for the chance to break you, but I don't think it's possible to exceed what you've done to yourself. Ate her right up with that one. They continue their walks each day, but neither one of them seems to be softening to the other one, okay? We are like 100 pages in at this point, and they are enemying. It's a little quote. His mood was always dark after that, and he'd mockingly point out the location of the various light switches she was too dense to observe on her own. He was so condescending, she wanted to throw a rock at him, and was disappointed when she found nothing outside but little pieces of finely milled white gravel. I love them. No, but it's so funny. There were multiple moments. I really like the humor style in this because it's like subtle funny. So it'll be really dark and then she'll just sneak in a little line that's so silly, and I love it. Helena is entertaining herself now by like wandering the hallways that have windows now that she has technically walked through them, looking for a weapon, but she can't find anything. She stumbles upon an old family portrait of Faren looking like his old self with his dark hair, and she says it's clear that he's like modeling himself off his father, but it doesn't seem to have worked then, and now he's like this weird, scary, alternate version of himself. Straoud is still coming to visit and do examinations, and she's bringing Mandel as punishment because if she has to waste her time on it, she wants Mandel to do the same thing since it's her fault. We learned that part of the reason why Mandel was so angry is because she was one of the children who at birth was discovered to be a vivimancer and was given up and put into the orphanages because parents don't want vivimancer children because they know that they're gonna be evil. That's at least what the sacred faith tells everybody. Once again, they're trying really hard to get her to see that the sacred flame and everything were not good and they were using her, but Helena just can't. She's like, you don't understand. Luke was the best option we had. He was the one that was supposed to be in charge. It doesn't matter about the other people. He didn't know what was going on. He was a good person. And they again are like, girl, if he didn't know what was going on, he was blind, deaf, and dumb. He was a puppet. Like, why can't you see that? Straoud gets so angry that she's like, you know what? I think when the High Reeve is done with you, I'm gonna request to have you put into the breeding program. That terrifies her, but also she's like, it won't do any good. I'm sterilized, which was a requirement for her to join the resistance. The guy who was in charge of the church and that branch of the council was like, if we're gonna let her stay in the resistance, she has to be sterilized so that I know she can't get pregnant, she's gonna give up her right to have children, and that way she can't pass her disgusting vivimancy on to anybody else. But sure, they were the good guys. I really liked this part of the conversation because it really makes it clear that, like, because obviously Maro is awful, right? Like, he is so scary, so disgusting, but she did a really good job of putting in people that you can see so clearly why they fell for him. We get another scene of Faren coming into the room to check her memories, and again, he is overly aggressive with her. Like, this is a trend with his behavior where he just is, it's strange. It's like he doesn't, like, genuinely doesn't seem to register what his behavior looks like to her. So he storms into the room and essentially uses his vivimancy to just like throw her onto the bed, and her immediate response is like, oh, so I was wrong to think that he wouldn't do this to me, thinking that he's going to SA her right then. With no warning, there's been no real, but like, other than the fact that they're talking about the repopulation program, he's been bombarded with these images of like her friends being coerced into that and stuff. And so that is like filling her head, and then she knows the other undying men are doing that to people. But she's had no reason to think that Faren would act like that, but he still doesn't seem to register that, like, that's what's happening around them. So of course she would have those fears. Like, that is, she's just trapped in his house. He can do whatever he wants to her, just like all the other people. But when he goes into her head and sees her memories and sees her have those thoughts about him, because she immediately calms down. Like, once he starts looking at her memories and she realizes what he's gonna do, she feels almost kind of silly, because she's like, okay, he's not like that. Like, I was right. You know, that isn't gonna happen here. And he sees all of that in her head and is, once again, so offended. Just like when she was like, he's so scary, I hate him. He's immediately offended again. And he's like, oh my God, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to touch you at all, okay? I don't want you here. I have nothing to do with you. Don't even put those thoughts in your head again. There is another trend with him where he lashes out the moment she hurts his feelings. And it seems like these moments where she's like, you're scary looking, I kind of think you're ugly, you might be somebody capable of SA. Like, all of that bothers him so much. He doesn't outright say it. What he ends up doing is, like, viciously lashing out at her immediately afterwards. So he's like, you want to see me be a monster? Say less. And then he'll just say the most heinous shit you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, buddy, proving her point as we speak. So he reminds her that, yeah, he might have hurt people, but what's the difference between him killing people and her putting people back together to be sent back onto the battlefield to die again? This is like the most hurtful thing he could have said to her, because it's a fear that she's had this whole time, where, like, yes, she healed people, but for what? She just sent them out to suffer, you know, 2 to 3 more times. Now he's in a mood to talk, okay? Again, with the, like, he gets upset, any big emotion, suddenly he's talkative. So he goes on like a big paragraphs long spiel about how, yeah, he killed Apollo, and then afterwards, like, he was basically called a prodigy, and that's what made Maro, like, want him as his right-hand boy, because he was 16, and he is talking about how his mother and him were at the celebratory dinner for it, and then gets this, like, sad, faraway look in his eyes talking about his mom. I can sniff out a mommy wound in seconds, and literally when they talked about the portrait and we saw his parents with him, and his mom was like this tiny woman who seemed unwell, I was like, oh, Helena, you need to run, girl. You are in danger. These men are the worst type of men every time. Every time. And you can think to yourself, it won't be that bad this time. It will be. It will be, Helena. Run. We get our first full flashback memory in chapter 8. It's Luke and Helena on the roof of the alchemy tower talking during the war. Something has happened. Luke is unwell. All these times she's thought about him and pictured him, he's this beautiful young boy, blonde hair, blue eyes, golden skin, touched by the sun god, like, radiates light, is just so loving and happy. Now he's gaunt and sickly and smoking an opium pipe, which is not something he would ever do. He was very against stuff like that. And remember, he was against, like, taking things from the other resistance members. So even just using drugs that could be used to treat his soldiers, he would never have agreed to that normally. They're discussing the sides of the war and how, you know, history is told by the victors. And so there's a lot of gray area between good and bad, because both sides think they're right. Sometimes both sides are right about certain things and horribly wrong about others, and it's just hard to know who's actually the good people, especially when there's so much death. Like, it kind of feels like there's only wins and losses. When she wakes up, this really haunts her. She's worried that, you know, she's getting her memory back and the secret might slip out, and then Faren would see it and he could give it to Maro, but also she's worried about what she's forgotten because, again, something was horribly wrong with Luke. She doesn't remember why he ended up like that. She tells us about his pyromancy, which is basically just, you know, fire magic in this world. So because Luke was part of the Holdfast, 2 of their special skills were the alchemization of gold, which not everybody can do, most people can't, and then pyromancy, which is like a rare technique. We also hear a little bit more about the issues inside the Sacred Faith's version of history. So because they were talking about that in the memory, it's kind of triggered her to think about it more. A lot of stuff has been lost to like time, and it's been turned kind of mythical. So there's all this info about the Holdfast family that sounds like maybe they're bigger than they were, and there's things that like people don't know, you know, if that actually happened centuries ago, if people really were that powerful, or if it was just kind of misconstrued because they won. It's just hard to say. While exploring that day, Helena catches Faren fighting with his father. Turns out it's his dad inside Crowther's body, so they're arguing, and he's basically telling him that, you know, he's a disappointment, and he wishes that he would listen to him more, and Faren was like, well, it doesn't really matter what you want because you're dead. So you're not head of the family anymore. You have no sway in what I do. You can't control the house. I'm essentially the patriarch now. So get over yourself. I'm in charge. His dad is really riled up, and he ends up saying, I should have refused your mother's pleas and had you killed in the womb. You deserve none of the suffering we endured for you. Faren claps back with, a pity you didn't, if it would have spared me this tedious conversation. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes he's funny. Sometimes whatever happened to him has made him so funny. His dad will not shut up. So Faren turns the house on him, and the iron bars in the floor just drag his father out and throw him out of the property. Back in her room, Faren finds her again, and he gives her this tablet that is similar to what Straoud has given her in the past to sort of like control her, but he uses it to essentially numb her emotions down to nothing so that she can explore the house without fear, and that way hopefully continue to explore the house, and she won't be scared because she'll have seen everything. She says, it's bizarre how empty she felt, scarcely human, as if nothing meant anything or had any consequences. The tablets took away the good feelings as much as the bad. She was carved out and empty, an abyss instead of a human. Is this what it's like to be you? Girl! It makes him laugh though, and he's like, well, how does it feel? Do you like it? And she says, it feels like I'm dead. And that makes him make like a weird sound. So he has definitely, in this interaction with her, so softened. Like, he's the most himself we've seen this whole time. And Helena points it out, and she's like, you're being weirdly different with me. Like, you're not as mean. He immediately is like, oh, you want to see mean? And turns it back on, and is essentially like, well, what good is torturing you if you're not even going to react? Like, there's no fun in that. And so, sure, buddy. Now I got your number. Now I freaking see you. Now that she can think properly without her fear and anxiety, she starts to like rationalize and work through things. So the tablets end up being pretty helpful for her. She starts thinking about how he always seems to know where she is in the house, and she discovers eyeballs installed in the ceilings to watch the house with his necromancy. Or I guess maybe his vivimancy, maybe a little bit of both, because it's like a normal eyeball, like what Grace was selling at the hospital, essentially. She also studies Faren a bit more, trying to like decode him a little bit, but again, he's basically a statue. He's so hard to read. Way harder than most of the Northerners. Like, she's gotten pretty good at reading body language, but he doesn't do anything with his body, so it's like impossible to read him. She asks about his silver ring that he wears, which is the only jewelry or metal of any kind that she ever sees on him, which is very strange because typically alchemists and especially guild members will like deck themselves out in metal. So like Aurelia is always covered in iron to show off the fact that she's part of the Iron Guild and also Faren's wife. But it's just like, this weird silver ring. It's handcrafted instead of like forged by the alchemist. When the tablet wears off, Helena immediately regrets it because she has horrible withdrawals and ends up sick, just like she had with the fever, but like worse. All of the feelings that she had been pushing down come crashing back to the surface, and she's sick for like a whole day. They do another transference session, and Helena uses the time that he's inside her mind to push all her feelings of hatred towards him, which he doesn't react to, but he doesn't react to anything. So she has a seizure though this time, and he helps her through it. Like, she's super disoriented, and she's aware that there's like a man with her, and we know it's Faren because he's the only man in the house and he's the only person in the room with her, but she doesn't recognize him in the moment because she's in so much pain. He is like touching her face to try to like fix the damage and like test it, and she like leans into his hand and like seeks comfort in him, and he lets her. As she's passing out, she asks, "Do I know you?" And he goes, "I suppose you do." In the morning, she remembers everything and is like horrified that she leaned into him for comfort and felt any comfort from him at all. She's having the fevers again. Straoud comes to check on her and basically says, you know, there's not as much swelling this time. I think if we do this once a month, it will work, and, you know, the fevers will go down as time goes on and you get more used to it. Again, more and more she's trying to learn about Faren now that he's spending so much time with her. You know, they're going on the walks, they're doing the transference sessions. There's just more time that they're alone together each day. He's giving her nothing. But most of the Northerners give her nothing, okay? So she has gotten used to decoding their body language and trying to figure out what they mean, because most of them were quote unquote nice to her with their words, but their body language would say like, "Ew, we don't like you, you creepy foreigner, get away from us, like stop talking to us." Now Faren doesn't give her any of that because he doesn't do anything. He is so statuesque and stoic, like his body betrays nothing. He ends up buying her winter boots and gloves so that she can be comfortable going out and walking, and he's very adamant that this is not a sign of affection and she should not take it that way. And she's a little offended because she's like, does he really think I'm foolish enough to mistake his calculation for kindness? The months go by and we get to the winter solstice. Aurelia throws a party and a man named Lancaster breaks into Helena's room. He recognizes her and seems to be coming after her, but Helena doesn't know who he is. She sort of knows the name, but she's not sure. Faren arrives just in time and saves her, and she's more than a little ashamed of the fact that she is so bonded with him now from the trauma that when he gets in between her and Lancaster, she like cowers into his back and hides because she trusts him to protect her, even though he's her captor. When the boys leave, she sneaks out to watch the party from up above on a balcony and catches Aurelia banging some random guy in the hallway. So the marriage is deeply dysfunctional. She watches the party and tries to recognize people, but it's a lot of faces she doesn't know. There's Undying members there, there's, you know, liches there wearing corpses. At the New Year's countdown, Aurelia comes back into the room and goes to Faren and they pose for pictures. But when he goes to kiss her, he looks up and makes eye contact with Helena where she's hiding on the balcony. A man then brings in prisoners to be tortured as entertainment, and Faren is really annoyed because he apparently already said no to this. The guy insists and is making like a scene in front of all the guests. So Faren is like, okay, sure, we'll do that, and breaks the neck of a little boy before killing the entire family of 5. Now he does it ridiculously fast, right? Like so quickly. Helena is shocked by the speed at which he does this horrible thing. The crowd is shocked. Like it happens in a matter of seconds. And he says to the man who brought the people in and wanted a show and a spectacle, he's like, Maro decided that the executions are supposed to be quick and clean now. Didn't you know that? I thought you knew that. So there's just this air of like strangeness to it. Like if he was evil, why did he say no in the first place? Why didn't he give in and make the spectacle and make it gross and awful? Like, but then at the same time, he just killed 3 children. So there's no rationalizing his behavior. Like, that's what I really loved about Faren, is like, you can be like, okay, at least he didn't flay them alive first, but like they're still dead. 3 dead children, 2 dead parents. On her way back to her room, Helena catches Aurelia arguing with her father, and she's complaining about the fact that she's not pregnant yet because Faren won't so much as look at her, let alone touch her. The most she gets is the kisses done for the cameras so that they look like a happy, healthy young couple, even though they are dysfunctional as hell inside the house. He calls her a failure and is like, don't forget that the only reason you even exist is to give the Farens an heir. Figure it out and quit being so stupid. Faren is waiting at her room when she goes to bed, and they have this weird moment where like he asks about Lancaster. He wants to know why he was there, if she remembers him, if she knew him. Helena is like, no, I don't think so. Like, I have no memory of him. And he's like, okay, cool. And he's like a little drunk, and so he's softer than normal. And so they have this weird moment where like she's tired, he's drunk. They are kind of nice to each other. It's a strange moment where like she makes him laugh and then she's like, huh, I made him laugh. That's so weird. So they're like sort of softening to each other, but also she's still horrified that she felt safe with him because he's a child-killing monster. She complains about being bored and says that that's why she wanted to watch the party. And he's like, girl, you know you can ask for things, right? And she's like, no. And he's like, yeah, just ask the servants. They know what they can give you. Like, you're a prisoner, but you're not supposed to be miserable. When she goes to bed, he stays outside her room and essentially like guards the door. And again, she's weirded out by the fact that she actually feels kind of safe knowing he's out there waiting, making sure nobody else is gonna break in. The next day, she asks the necrothralls if they can give her, I think she asks for a knife and then scissors and then a book and the paper, and they obviously only say yes to the book and the paper, but now she can read the paper every day. She explores the house one more time after taking another one of the tablets and ends up inside a room which is usually locked. There's this really strange alchemical array that she can't decipher, and an iron cage. Faren catches her inside the room, but doesn't make her leave, even though he's clearly very angry. Like, she is kind of dulled down enough that she can see his expression and read the rage in it, but he doesn't make her leave. When he finally gets her back into the hallway, the necrothrall woman is waiting across the room, watching them, mouthing wordlessly Cain over and over again. So she's just like whispering his name. Helena's like, that's so strange. I didn't know they could do that. And then Faren like flicks his hand and the woman runs away. Once again, we're studying Faren. Helena is confused because she can't understand why somebody on his side of the war, who has won, who has all of this wealth and status, is cold and mean and filled with rage. She's like, he doesn't have anything to be angry about. Like, how dare he be upset? I should be upset. He killed all my friends. She starts trying to like decipher it, and she thinks about the fact that, you know, he is ultra powerful, but he's anonymous. So the High Necromancer is keeping him that way so that he can't gain his own followers and maybe become more powerful, which has got to be part of what's got him so upset, because it means that everybody else is sort of allowed to, for the most part, do what they want to do, but as the High Reeve, he's stuck as Maro's pet, basically. Aurelia catches them on this tour of the house and is obviously like very upset and disgusted that they're spending time together. Faren is kind of amused by this and is like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, the world already knows she lives here, but if you don't feel like she's part of the family enough, we could start bringing her to parties. Maybe I could take her with me into town. Is that what you want? Do you want her to be seen with me even more? After this fight, he like watches Aurelia storm away and then turns to Helena and is like, you irritate my wife. She goes, it seems I do. If you want to do something about it, you could kill me. And it makes him laugh. It's like to the point where it says he snorted, amusement lighting his face for an instant. Those tablets really do a number on you. They're bonding! It's trauma. It's trauma. It's not healthy. There's nothing about this that is healthy, okay? At this point, bad. Bad all around. But they do seem to be softening to each other. How are we feeling about it, chat? What do we think? But then immediately, because if there's one thing this man fears above all else, it's intimacy of any kind. This brief moment of what could maybe be bonding, he ruins it by being like, you know I don't care about you, right? I literally don't care about you at all. And she's like, yeah, you seem like weirdly obsessed with making sure that I know that. Kind of hitting him with like, you protest a little too much, my man. And that just makes it worse. And he's like, yeah, because it's true. Because I don't care about you at all. Leave me alone. Shut up. He runs off and leaves her alone though, and so then outside in the stables she almost gets eaten by some monster wolf thing because Aurelia left the gate open and she was able to get inside. We get another memory at the top of chapter 12, which is Lila crying to Helena on her bed, saying that she's been lying to everybody and keeping a horrible secret. During the next transference session, their minds are starting to meld to the point where, like, if he blinks, she blinks, like they're very easily kind of becoming each other now, but she's still able to kick him out of her mind. Winter comes and Helena is left alone at the house while the Farens go into the city. The breeding experiment is still going strong, but weirdly enough, Helena has been reading the society papers, and people seem to just be disappearing. Like, names just keep getting crossed off the list of the Undying, and it's very strange. Aurelia comes home with her boyfriend, who turns out to be Lancaster, and now Helena is like, oh, so if they're together, that means he wasn't gonna attack me. He must be a resistance spy. He's the one coming to get me. Helena is still sickly, and the winter is only making it worse. When Straoud comes to see her again, it's been months at this point since she came to stay with the Farens, and she's like, I don't understand why you're not getting any better. Like, what are they feeding you? Helena explains that it's basically scraps, like she's just eating like boiled down scraps of their food, and Straoud is like, oh my god, that's what we feed the necrothralls, like that's ridiculous. She brings Faren in, he gets a good look at Helena for the first time, which is ridiculous, by the way, because they have been together for months now. Like, he should be able to see this in her face, in her arms, in her hands. Yes, she's wearing dresses, but like, my man, she's way too skinny. How did you not notice? But he didn't somehow, and he's pissed. He says that Aurelia has always been in charge of the meals because, you know, she runs the household, and so he didn't realize that Helena wasn't being fed what they were eating, but immediately agrees to change that so that she's eating properly. When he comes and visits her later at dinner, he tells her, you know, like, why didn't you complain? Like, I don't understand why I have to do everything for you. Like, you're allowed, you know, to ask for things, you're allowed to tell me things are wrong. Like, what's going on? Why don't you, what aren't you getting? Why aren't you doing that? And again, it's like, he doesn't seem to understand the level of stoic and scary that he is, because it's like she feels like he protects her for his own interest. She doesn't feel like he actually likes her or cares about her, and why would she think that as a prisoner she's allowed to ask for things like that? But it's like he doesn't fully see her as a prisoner, and we saw that with the way that he sort of, like, you know, teased Aurelia, and he's made it very clear that, like, she's not part of the staff. She's in their household now. So there's just this weird disconnect between, like, the way they're both viewing this situation. In this moment where Straoud comes to look at her again, she also does a full body examination, and Helena wakes up with a suspicious bruise on her left hip where she's definitely been injected with something, but she doesn't know what it would be. Another memory also of Lila. This time she's talking to Helena about how unwell Helena has become. She's worried about her. She's like, you know, are you afraid they're going to replace you at the hospital? Like, what's wrong with you? She's asking why she's become so distant, what could be wrong with her, and Helena is like, well, we're in the middle of a war and it's really bad and I'm really scared all the time and my friends keep dying. Like, what are you talking about? I don't want to talk about it. This just sucks. This conversation really confuses her because Helena herself mentions having trainees that have been brought in to replace her at the hospital. And when she wakes up, she's like, I didn't have trainees. Like, why would they have been brought in? That doesn't make any sense. And she even remembers her supervisor, Mateus, who was part of the Sacred Faith, and he, like, had really strong northern views. So, like, he didn't like women, but then he also really didn't like vivimancers. So Helena being both was, like, awful to him. Like, he thought she was despicable and scary. He's the reason why she was sterilized. Like, he insisted on her taking those oaths specifically so that they could trust her, and then he still never softened to her or liked her the whole time she was working for the resistance. She also finally remembers Soren, who is Lila's twin brother, but when she tries to, like, force remember more about him and why she would have forgotten him, she triggers an episode, nearly passes out, and then when she gets the information back, all she can remember is Lila again. So once again, she forgets Soren. While walking through the house one day, she finds the dining room open and steals a knife, but almost immediately is caught by Faren and his fathers. He knows she stole something, and again, instead of being really angry, he's like, let's see it, like, just give me what you took, it doesn't matter. And she uses it as an opportunity to attack him. So she literally like stabs him in the chest, and he sort of like laughs it off and it doesn't hurt him, and he's like, you know, I thought you'd use poison, like, wow, you're just gonna stab me? And then she doesn't stop fighting him, so he ends up having to fight back. Initially he tries to just like you know, keep her back like semi-gently, and then when she keeps fighting, he uses force and like stops her and ends up using his power to freeze both her and his father, because his father tries to attack her as well, even though Faren didn't ask for help. So then he's even more annoyed with his dad, and that leads to a moment there. But with Helena, he's like, why won't you ever stop? And she says, why won't you just die? And they have this like stalemate moment where they're just clearly seething and hating each other, but nothing really comes from it. Like, it doesn't really matter that she did that. It's just proof that she's still trying to get herself killed. Speaking of people being killed, the governor is attacked, but Mandel ends up getting shot and she dies, which is crazy. This like is amazing news to Helena, and now she's positive that there's another resistance person out there, maybe, you know, emboldened by the fact that she's still alive, and now they're taking out undying people to weaken the necromancer's numbers. Faren takes Helena to go see Maro because he wants to inspect her himself, and he is decaying rapidly. Like, it's only been a couple months since she last saw him, and remember, he was a man when he killed Luke. A couple years went by, he was that weird skeletal thing. Now it's even worse. He's sitting on like a throne of necrothrall bodies, and he seems to be like drawing power from them because he is literally falling apart. Like, he does not look like a person anymore. Whatever is going on with his resonance in his body is like killing him. Something's wrong. He's still in charge and wickedly powerful, so he's livid that it's taken so long for Faren to figure out what's going on with her and get the memories out, so he tries to take them out himself and goes through everything in her mind. And Helena, even though she's in pain, is still able to resist and like kind of push him out a little bit, enough that he picks up on it. And when he lets her go, he's like, wow, you're even more useless than I thought you were. This is the Animancer. I don't know who Elaine Boyle is, but this woman right here did this to herself, and she's the reason why we're here at all. This was all her fault. This is bad news for Faren because he 100% should have noticed this when he felt her pushing him out of her mind all those times. So Maro knows that something's funky here now. Also, this whole time, his dad has been saying, I think I recognize this girl from somewhere, and Faren was brushing it off because his dad is apparently paranoid after his torture sessions. And so Maro is like, I want to know why you didn't put two and two together. You're supposed to be my head spy master, and you're out here being a dumbass. And Faren is like, well, in my defense, I did look into it, and I found out that she's the one who bombed Bennett's laboratory. And so, yeah, like, she did blow that place up, and she killed Bennett, and that's when she got captured and put into the stasis tank. But I still didn't think that meant she was the Animancer. And Maro's like, oh, okay, cool. And then kills Faren. Like, just kills him. So he collapses on top of Helena and is like shielding her body. Like, he falls on top of her, dies on top of her, and then regenerates and comes back to life on top of her, helps her up, and is like frantically apologizing, super shaken. This is like the most emotion she's seen from him because he just died. Maro does give him another chance though because he's so powerful. So he's like, get out of my sight, go figure this out, get the memories out of her immediately. Faren agrees and takes Helena away. They stumble through the tunnels, both of them really shaken and upset. Again, Faren is not himself. Like, he is super unwell. This did a number on him. She is so confused because she has no memory of blowing up the laboratory. And he explains like, yeah, I'm not sure why, you know, but the war was technically over, and then you went and did that as like a last effort, and then we caught you there, and that's when you got put in the stasis tank. And then he explains right around then is when he sort of became the High Reeve. That was when Lila escaped the outpost, and then he went and killed her. Because of his reaction to everything, she asks him if he's been through this before, and he says, yeah, my training was rigorous. He catches himself oversharing, as he always does, and sort of immediately gets mean again. And suddenly he's being really snippy, and he's like, what, are you hoping I'll give you a confession? Do you want to know all the things I've done? And she just looks at him in this like dark tunnel that they've stopped in and is just like, do you want to? Because clearly he's lonely and messed up too. Like, she's putting that together slowly, that like she's his prisoner, yes, but he's Maro's prisoner. Like, he's no more free than she is. But he brushes her off and is like, absolutely not, get in the car, and they go home. Helena recovers and is slowly feeling more and more like herself as the days go on. She figured out that the Undying are being killed. That's why they keep disappearing from the society papers. And since the Undying are clearly Maro's source of power, that must be why he's dying now too. Faren ends up confirming this. The months continue to go by, the transference sessions are still happening, and it's progressing slowly. She's still having fevers, but they're not that bad. Faren is now also hunting this like mystery group of resistance people that are killing the Undying, but he's not finding anybody, which is leading to Maro torturing him more and more for not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So Faren is like steadily getting worse while Helena gets better. She's starting to realize that it's not so much that he's stoic all the time. He's in an almost constant state of shock from being tortured. She doesn't care though, because she believes that he deserves to suffer. She gets so healthy that she starts to get her period again, which once upon a time probably would have been nice for her, but now it just upsets her because it makes her remember and realize that she's doing better than her friends who are now, you know, stuck in the outpost or part of the repopulation program. While Faren is doing one of his like memory checks on her, he catches the thoughts about her worrying about him and teases her about it. She shuts that down because she's like, it's not you, it's anybody. Like, I don't like torture. I don't think anybody should be subjected to that. I don't care about you though. They get into a debate about if there's really a difference between killing somebody the way that Faren does and letting someone die for you the way that Luke does. And she immediately shuts it down and is like, don't you dare compare yourself to him. Luke was an amazing person and you are a horrible, awful monster. Faren admits to not believing or caring about the gods because if they were real, they would have made Apollo harder to kill. She asks him who he hates so much because again, he's just radiating malice and rage all the time. Like, there's just a bottomless pit of tortured rage stuck in this boy's body constantly, and Helena can just see it. Like, it just lives in his eyes. But when she asks him that, he just says, many people, most of whom are dead now. Aurelia has another party and Helena hears the men, talking about how fun the repopulation program is, and I cannot stress to you enough how disgusting and vile the things that come out of their mouths are. They ask Faren if he's been, because he's so powerful and strong, surely they want him to make more resonance babies. And he immediately shuts it down and is like, I don't know if you guys know this, but I've been a little busy. Like, I have more going on than that. And he gives the air of it being like beneath him and not wanting to waste his time doing it. But again, the thing is, these are his friends. Like, these are the people that he's like spending time with, hanging out with, and they feel this way. So there's separation between the two of them, but he's not condemning them for what they're doing. You know, they talk about the murders as well, and it turns out that the Undying that are being picked off are dying in the same way the murders of that last group of resistance people were. So remember when I mentioned the husband and wife that like had to kill each other? That was just recreated. So whoever is doing it is definitely resistance and definitely making a point that they're coming after the Undying on purpose. On her way back to her room, Helena is once again attacked by Lancaster, who says that he's waited long enough and it's his turn with her. She does fight him off initially, but he drugs her and manages to kidnap her anyway. They make it out to the gate, and then Faren stops them. He attacks Lancaster and rips out his organs, like just shoves his hand in his stomach, pulls out his organs, and starts winding them around his fist. Lancaster is losing his mind, screaming, whimpering in horrible pain, and Faren is like, if you ever come anywhere near her again, I will strangle you with these. And then he kicks him off the property. Helena is really out of it from the drugs, and she was trying to remember something to say to Lancaster while he was dragging her away. And we thought it was a memory, but what it ends up being is Faren always comes for me. And she says it to Faren, and then he's like, hey, what's... Okay, anyway, going inside, he gets her in the house, tries to let the necromancer woman take care of her and clean her up, but she is so out of it again that she can't handle the dead spell, and so he sends that woman away. He does it himself and like cleans her up, fix her cuts with his vibromancy, and then gets surprisingly gentle. Because remember, he did this when he helped with the seizure as well. So he has this in him, he just doesn't act like it all the time, and certainly not when she's fully conscious and aware. Like, he only ever acts like this when she's out of it and probably won't remember that he's doing it. But he asks her, you know, did Lancaster do anything else to you? And she's like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, okay, thank God. In the morning, Faren is gone, and Helena feels even more confused and upset that it turns out Lancaster wasn't a spy. So who is the person killing the Undying? Like, she cannot make it make sense in her brain. Aurelia comes in and takes her out of her room, and she's in a foul mood. While they're walking through the house going to a different location, he explains to her that when Faren was a baby, people thought something was wrong with him. And he was kind of secreted away from the family, and it turns out, you know, he was a vibromancer, but at the time, her family, who were also part of the Iron Guild, were like, oh, he must be sick, maybe he's a lapse, which means that he doesn't have any resonance of his own, but surely something's wrong with him, so if we can create like a perfect daughter, they'll want to marry him to her, and that way they'll have like a strong child and the legacy can continue. Her parents were cousins, in hopes that the iron resonance would be like perfect between them, but it led to having two sickly children that her father did not allow to be carried to term, and then finally Aurelia. So she was born, that's what's wrong with her. Also mentally it has really messed with her because she was essentially like made for Faren. Like all her life she was supposed to marry him. That was the whole point of her being born. It finally happened, and he wants nothing to do with her. And she had kind of accepted, you know, maybe he likes men, maybe he likes nothing, whatever it is, he doesn't want me, but I guess it'll be fine and I'll just be his wife and it won't matter, whatever. And then Helena showed up and she's like, it turns out he wants you. And I can't have that. So it was already bothering her. We knew that she hated Helena. We couldn't figure out why. This is why. But now he has also killed Lancaster on purpose to make a point, which has obviously cracked her out, and now she's lost it and she can't handle anything anymore. So she is planning on plucking out Helena's eyes to give to Faren so that he can add them to his collection because he doesn't have any brown ones. Basically, mental snap, right? Like, she's unwell and she's having a snap. Helena is trying to convince her to stop, but it's not working. The necrothralls are trying to attack and get into the room to stop them, but it's not working. They start screaming her name, but they can't get to her. Aurelia is like, wow, I had no idea they could even talk. Like, this is crazy. She starts to pluck out one of Helena's eyes and gets it out of socket so that Helena goes blind on that side of her face. And then right as that happens, the house comes alive, grabs Aurelia with iron bars, crushes her, and frees Helena. Faren arrives minutes later, which is insane because he was supposed to be in the city. That's why Aurelia waited until this moment to attack her. But he comes in and he's instantly in healer mode. He doesn't even look at his wife's crushed body. He just goes to Helena and is like, okay, your eye's out of socket and there's a puncture in the white. What do I do? She's panicking and he's like, I need you to breathe and tell me how to fix your eye. Okay, we got minutes. What do I need to do? And she walks him through fixing her eye for her, and he goes so far as to like let her touch his hand so that she can show him the proper movements since she was a healer. Once she's finally stable and he knows that he's done all he can for her, then he goes to Aurelia and wakes her up. So once again, he uses his vibromancy to heal Aurelia. She wakes up. She is absolutely out of her mind with shock. She's like, how did you get here so fast? How did you turn the house on me? What is going on? And he's like, you gotta stop underestimating me, okay? This is my house. This is my family metal. I will do what I want with it. Don't touch Helena ever again. The fact that the house could be controlled by him, even just one room down the hall, would be crazy work. Helena explains to us that alchemists normally disintegrate when they try to like use their power from far away like that. Like that's not supposed to be possible. And it sounds like Faren was exceptionally far away. Turns out he had just made it onto like the property line and was able to do that in the house. Faren is in one of those like cold rages where he's just being vicious with his words, just tearing her to shreds. So she flees the room, just like no self-esteem left in her. That poor girl. But also she's evil, so do we care? Not really. Helena obviously wants to know more about how on earth his power works that way, and he says something interesting, which is, I don't want to discuss it right now. Sort of implying that maybe if she asks again, he'll tell her the truth. It was very strange. She also wants to know how he learned to heal and how he knew she would be able to heal like that. And he's like, well, you were a healer, you know? And he brushes off his own skills by being like, there was a war and I was a general, and so I just picked up things, duh. Her eye does heal thanks to him and she regains her sight, but then Straoud comes and ruins everything by being like, surprise, you're finally ready to join my repopulation program. Turns out the freaky injections and bruises that she was getting on her hips that she did not put together, probably because she doesn't have her resonance, right? So it's not like she can check her own body and see what's being done to her. She just is going by sight and feel, and she didn't have any reason to think this was possible. But Straoud has redone the sterilization process, so Helena can get pregnant now. And before you ask, yes, it is their idea and recommendation that Faren and Helena be partnered together first because they're both so powerful. So if anybody is going to create a baby strong enough to withstand Maro transferring his soul into it, it would be the two of them. Oh my God. So he's got 2 months to get her pregnant, or she'll be sent to Central, where Straoud assures her there are many other men ready for the task. So Helena has a panic attack, right? As one does. Straoud is like, hello, calm down. This is a good thing? I thought you'd enjoy a break from the transference. Again, I want to say that obviously I have to be careful with how I phrase this and how we talk about it on here because of the algorithm, but the book does not shy away from the words, okay? This is disgusting, and there is nothing about this that is romanticized or softened. Like, it is horrific. It's horrific that Straoud is okay with it. It's horrific that Straoud is in charge of it. It's so well done. It's so well done, guys. So Faren doesn't say no, even though he's obviously uncomfortable. Like, again, it's hard to read him, but he's not like, oh, yay, this is great, I'm so excited. He even tries to like talk them out of it and be like, I don't understand, you know, I thought the memories were the most important thing, but Maro himself has requested that this be the new main task, so he can't say no without angering him. And the alternative is Helena getting sent to Straoud and the men at Central, which would be even worse. I don't know if it would be better or worse for either one of them if they like discussed it, but it kind of just becomes this thing where Faren gives her a warning of like, you know, it'll happen in 3 days from now, and they just sort of continue business as usual with like going on the walks, having stilted conversations. Things are really uncomfortable because now they know in 3 days he's gonna have to start essaying her. It's just so uncomfortable and bleak and awful. Like there's no way to romanticize it. Nothing about it is sexy. It's horrifying. He's also still being routinely tortured because his hunting missions are not successful. So there's just this layer of bleakness. Like it's just getting worse for both of them steadily. And now they're trapped in this situation as well, where it seems like there's no way out for either one of them. So Helena is at least thankful that they're both miserable and prisoners in their own ways. When the first night finally comes, she feels really torn because like, yes, it's horrible. Like there's no way around the fact that it's horrible, but Faren is at least significantly nicer and more considerate than the other people she's heard talk about this. Like it's obvious that he is not enjoying it. He has to take like his own medicine to even get himself able to do anything to her. Like, and when it's over, she's obviously having a panic attack and he throws up because he's so sick over what's just happened. And so again, it's like there's no good choice. Like, just giving her the option to like pick between who's going to assault her is horrific and horrible, and she's aware of that. And again, it just feels like this cycle that they're trapped in and neither one of them can escape. Straoud comes back to check on her the next day, and just because she is truly evil incarnate, she gives her one of those tablets and rewires her to make her feel desire so that the next time it'll be more fun for both of them. When Faren realizes what's been done to her, he's so disgusted. But then again, they're trapped in this situation and he's like, I've been called away to the city, which means I won't be back until tomorrow. And the pill will last for 8 hours. So I don't know what we do. And he's gonna let her make the decision. Like, he basically says, like, do you want me to leave? I can leave if that's what you want. But then that would mean that if she doesn't get pregnant, they will have to do this all again the next month, right? So again, it's like, if we just get it over with and do these first 5 days and hopefully it works, then we never have to do this again. But also, I don't want to enjoy you assaulting me. Like, guys, it's so dark. It's so dark and scary and awful. Once again, they're both really sick after this happens, and Helena is sort of musing to herself that once upon a time, she had hoped that when the war was over, she would fall in love and she would learn what it was like to be wanted happily. And now that's been taken from her too, because she'll never be able to override these experiences. This goes on for 5 days and then stops, and Faren does not come to see her again. So once it's over, he leaves her alone for a long time. None of that makes her feel any better. Like, again, she's tortured by like, do I want to talk to him? Do I not want to talk to him? Obviously, he's not enjoying it. He doesn't want to be doing it, but he's still doing it. So what do I do? How am I supposed to feel? Pretty drastic lighting change. Also, I've got a Gatsby light floating around in the background. I just got home from work and I should definitely make dinner, but instead we're going to talk about the last 3 pages of my script because I want to get this filmed. So Lumithia, which is the second larger moon in this world, reaches full ascendance, which essentially just means that it's a full moon that night for Lumithia, and it's huge, like a huge planet. Everything, it's almost like daylight, like it's so bright and silvery. So if Helena didn't have the resonance blockers on, she would feel, you know, almost drunk off of it. The stronger you are, the more your resonance acts up, kind of thing. So she can only imagine how Faren must be feeling, but she just feels super agitated because her resonance has nowhere to go. So it should be swelling in her blood, but instead it's sort of like rebounding on itself and making her feel anxious. Dinner isn't sent to her that night, and so she kind of immediately starts to panic because that's never changed. Her routine has been pretty set in stone the whole time she's been there. And when she goes out into the hallway, none of the necrothralls are like watching her, which has also been very normal. They're supposed to be watching her all the time. Due to her anxiety being heightened, she immediately starts to worry that Faren has been killed because something's clearly wrong. The house isn't operating normally and she can't find him anywhere. So she starts stumbling through the dark rooms looking for him. She can't find him until she finally gives in and actually just goes back to his room. He had told her that first day that Aurelia took her there that she should never go to his room again. So she goes anyway and finds him half passed out at his desk, genuinely drunk. So the Ascendance night is making him drunk, but he's also been drinking. So it's like twofold. He is super intoxicated when she finds him. He is shockingly soft and weird because of the alcohol in his system, and he ends up like stumbling over to her. And he tells her, if I'd known what pain you'd cause me, I never would have taken you. At this point, I suppose I deserve to burn. I wonder if you'll burn too. He takes her face in his hands and kisses her without further warning. Whiplash of the century, I fear. Like, my man, I really need you to get it together, okay? You gotta knock this off. She describes it as a punishing kiss, so take from that what you will. She's super conflicted and confused and touch-starved and absolutely dealing with Stockholm Syndrome, even though they're not calling it that, because obviously there's no Stockholm to reference. So I love when books do that in a clever way, where she references like a study done somewhere and there's no name for it. It's just like what she must be feeling. But she ends up giving into the kiss and enjoying it because whether she wants to or not, she does like him on some level. But it does equally horrify her, and so when she ends up moaning accidentally, he freezes immediately and seems to also realize what they're doing, and then they both sort of panic, and then she runs away. So she runs back to her room and she's so upset that she starts trying to bash her head in, and she honestly nearly succeeds. Like, she injures herself really badly, but Faren does catch up to her and stop her, and he's once again still being really gentle with her. He's sobering up very quickly because his regeneration means that he can drink to an extreme excess and burn it off really quickly, and so that's why when he drinks he has to drink so much. So he's already mostly okay again, but he's still being really soft with her, so he's like holding her, trying to keep her steady and like saying don't very quietly. He asks what it is that's made her suddenly so desperate to end her life, because it's been something that she struggled with the whole time, but this was the first time that she like was gonna do it for sure. And she explains that she's disgusted that she's gotten to a point where she's so starved for attention that she's willing to feel something for him and enjoy it. There's also a moment while she's sort of in and out of it in this stage where she sees the necrothrall woman who has been taking care of her the most moving like a human. And while Helena is like looking at her and clocking it, the woman sort of immediately starts to like be more robotic and stiff again. So jot that down, because I was like, ooh, we're tracking that. We've been keeping an eye on this lady this whole time. I can't remember who she is from the OG story, but we're gonna circle back, I fear. Okay, so the idea that she wants Faren out of a sense of survival irritates the shit out of him. And he's immediately so angry with her. Like, all of the good feelings gone, and he's back to being really cold and dismissive and awful. He calls her pathetic and says that that's like a stupid excuse because the resistance are always trying to get themselves killed, so why on earth would she now want to survive? He thinks she's lonely and can't handle that nobody needs her anymore. And he says, you can't bear being alone, and you'll do anything for the people who let you love them. This is really hurtful for her because she knows that that is kind of a core issue that she has, and the fact that he can just see them, and then not only does he see them, but he pokes them repeatedly. That, oh, it's bad. They're just constantly triggering each other. Like, I hope that that's obvious from anybody who's ever dealt with a person like this, but that's why Faren is mean, right? Because she says things that upset him, and then he's immediately like, now let me upset you. I love a rabid dog character. I love them so much, but he bites so hard. It's like, buddy, she's a war prisoner. Like, you gotta rein it in. I'm begging you, rein it in just a little. But he doesn't. He keeps going, and he's like, I won't be a replacement for Luke, has never, and he will never want her, so she can get that out of her mind, because that's not gonna happen. There's nothing he wants more than the moment he's finally done with her. Straoud comes back just to round out an awful chapter and announces happily that Helena is pregnant. So, like, literally so much happens in this chapter. It just kept going. I kept flipping through it being like, surely that's the last scene. Okay, more. The chapters are broken up into, like, some of them are longer, some of them are truly just little vignettes, and I just enjoyed it. It's been such a ride, but oh my god, this one in particular, chapter 20, is insane. Helena has a complete panic attack instantly and basically goes into psychosis. Like, screaming her head off, doesn't know where she is, loses sense of all time and space. Like, it's really bad. Faren shows up, and Mr. I don't care about you at all is suddenly caring a lot, and he starts berating Straoud for springing that on her, because he's like, I have been telling you that she is anxious. Like, I don't understand. It's like you're purposefully torturing her, and it's like, pot kettle, babe, pot kettle. Straoud admits that she's mean to her because she's the one who blew up Bennett, and once they had that confirmation, Straoud already didn't like her, but once they knew that for sure, she has been messing with her more. Faren is like, okay, cool, glad that I know for sure now. You're not allowed back in the house unless I am personally escorting you. Get out. Then he puts Helena to bed, and she's aware that he's helping her, but again, she's pretty much in psychosis, so she doesn't really know who it is or what's happening. She just kind of sort of knows it's Faren. He gets her into the bed, he tucks her in, and then as he's knocking her out, gently, but like using his vivimancy to put her to sleep, he whispers, I'm so sorry. Once again, I thought you didn't care, my man. When she wakes up again, Faren says that she's now going to be watched 24/7 because he's afraid that she'll hurt herself or the baby. He gives her a medical textbook so that she can learn more about pregnancy, because he knows that unless she knows exactly what's going to happen to her, she's going to sort of lose her mind worrying about it. She latches onto the book because, again, sort of psychosis. She's not doing well with this. Lots of PTSD stuff going on. So she latches onto the book because it's one of her only possessions and she doesn't want anything else taken from her. She feels really stuck with all of this, like there's no way out of it now, but she does break and beg him to let her go or save the baby because it's half his. And so she's like, you can't let them give this baby to Maro. Like he can't have the body. He shuts the door and seals them in the room together, and then very calmly is like, nothing is going to happen to your baby. I promise, you have my word. And the moment she hears it, she like collapses with relief, but sort of immediately knows that he's lying. Like, it's an empty promise. That's not something he can say yes to. He's just doing it to calm her down. And she did hear when he was talking to Straoud and like yelling at her, she got most of that, even though she was in and out of it. And so she knows that he said something along the lines of, oh, I've done everything to maintain her environment and you're ruining it. So she takes this promise to save the baby as just another attempt to maintain her environment. So as desperately as she wants to trust and care for him, she can't, because they're in this impossible situation where, like, at the end of the day, it's his job to like keep her safe. And if keeping her safe means lying to her, he'll do that. He'll do whatever it takes. So there's no way for her to trust him anymore. Once that's broken, she really feels all alone because it sort of shatters the trauma bond that they had going on. So on her end, that's broken. And now she's like, ooh, everything is bad. I am all alone, me and this baby against the world, including you. And she basically tells him to get fucked. And she's like, I'm not going to eat or exercise unless I don't have to look at you anymore. And I'll be honest, homie disappears. He just vanishes for several days. But she also gets wildly depressed. So it's literally like half a page where Faren is like, all right, fair enough, I'll leave you alone. And then sort of immediately comes back to her room 3 days later because she has not been eating and she has not been leaving the bed. And he's just standing over her and he's like, you said you'd eat. She explains that it's just like typical morning sickness. She's like, I'm not doing it on purpose. I can't eat right now. It's not gonna kill me. And that really freaks him out because remember, Aurelia told us that he was a sickly child. So he turns around and looks at her with like a haunted expression and is like, it nearly killed my mother. So that's why he's so spooked, because now he's afraid that he was a cursed baby who tried to kill his mom and now his cursed baby is gonna kill Helena. So once again, strange behavior for a man who doesn't care. Straoud's brought back and does a little early ultrasound. They have this cool device in this world that is basically like a like sheets of glass with smoke inside of it, and when they use their resonance while they're holding it, they can sort of project the thing that they're using their resonance to look at onto the screen like an ultrasound, but in this world, I thought it was a neat device. This does not really make anybody feel better because now it's just totally real that there is a baby inside her. While Straoud is looking her over and like checking her to make sure nothing else is wrong, she reminds everybody that if Maro's right, Helena did this to herself because, again, she's the animancer. So she put this on herself, which means that if now she's also growing a baby, which means that her body is not going to be able to maintain both at once. So theoretically, the memory block might start breaking down now that the baby's growing. Time keeps passing in this chapter. This is still chapter 21, okay? We're nearing the end of part 1. And time is passing. She's pregnant. The pregnancy's getting worse and worse. She's getting sicker and sicker. She's actively dying. And Faren, like, will not leave her bedside. He is with her constantly. And when she wakes up, she's sort of in and out of it a lot. But whenever she wakes up, he's with her. He's holding her hands and massaging them, which she says helps with her spasms that she gets. So she lets him do it. And she, like, tells herself that she doesn't like it, even though it's really comforting to have him there with her. I think I mentioned this a little bit, but Faren has a tendency to, like, illuminate with silver every once in a while. Like, his hair is silver white, his eyes are silver, and sometimes when he's using his magic or when he's like feeling a very intense emotion, he'll just sort of illuminate a little bit and his eyes will like get shiny. And so one night when he's sitting by her bedside, he's like glowing in the moonlight. Like he is like a moon sitting beside her bed. And she sort of thinks like she must be dreaming because she's been having fever dreams again. But that's happening and she can feel herself dying. Like she is actively slipping away. She says she feels like an hourglass losing the last bit of its sand. And then Faren hugs her and a warm glow like goes into her chest that she says feels strangely familiar. He's begging her to stay with him, and then the pain goes away. When she wakes up the next day, she's in a complete panic. She feels like there's something she was supposed to be doing, something she was supposed to remember, but she can't. And the fact that she can't just makes the panic worse. All of a sudden, she starts getting like fragments of memories slamming into her. Some of them we've seen before in the chapters. Some of them are new lines. None of them really make any sense. They're just like one line here while she's trying to like not pass out. Because remember, when this has happened in the past, like when she tried to focus on Soren and realized she'd forgotten him and was confused on why she'd forgotten him, that messed her up and she had like a little pass out moment. And then when she came to again, all she remembered was Lila. She's trying to keep that from happening, but it's like excruciatingly painful. So she's not doing well. And then Faren comes in because somehow he always seems to know when she's in distress. We will get to that. She hears herself crying and saying, I'm sorry, I did this to you. Then she sees Faren talking to her saying, I have warned you. If something happens to you, I will personally raise the eternal flame. That isn't a threat. It's a promise. Consider your survival as much a necessity to the resistance as holdfast. If you die, I will kill every single one of them. Now, when would he have said that to her? Oh, we are going to get into it. Then we get the final line. It was like falling. The past broke free, surging through her mind and swallowing her. End of part 1. I am deep in part 2. I have not been tabbing it, but yeah, all of this chunk is like part 2 right here, so there's less tabs there. But yeah, that's coming soon. Don't worry. I should be done with the book by the end of this weekend, and so videos are gonna be coming as quickly as I can get them out. This one should hopefully be up on Friday. But I'm having a great time. There's something so cathartic about this story, and I fear it's probably gonna be one of my favorite books. To be so honest, the fan fiction, I liked it, right? Like I did enjoy it. It was not one of my favorite ones I'd ever read. I think because it was a fan fiction, like it was so heavy for it being a fan fiction that I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Reading it in true book form, which now I say that in the most gentle way I can, and as a person who writes fan fiction, right? Like I have written book-length fan fiction before. I think there's just something about it with certain sets of characters. Like when you're looking at it in terms of who these guys originally were in fanfic form, they've been through so much already, okay? They already went through so much, and then to read a bleak fan fiction about them was just a lot. It was a lot. It was good, but it was a lot. This is new people. This is people in a different world. And I love watching them go through this. Like, it's so good. So I'm having a great time with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I highly recommend, if you've been considering reading it, that you pick it up because it's worth the hype, in my opinion. Again, I'm over halfway through now. But yeah, I can't imagine how the ending will not be good. I just think it's going to be great. I'm very excited. Let me know down below if you're reading the book. Have you finished it? Is it good? Try to tag your spoilers for people that haven't read it, but let's talk down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you so soon. Have a good one. Bye!